Slava Isus Augustus, Slava Navika, glory be to Jesus Christ, glory be forever. This is Father Basil again, and going back to Genesis, the book of Genesis in the Bible, and we're now in chapter 21. So this is chapter 21 of Genesis. The Lord dealt with Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah as he had promised. Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the time of which God had spoken to him. Abraham gave the name Isaac to his son whom Sarah bore him. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. Now Sarah said, God has brought laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh with me. And she said, who would ever have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age. The child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. But Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, playing with her son Isaac. So she said to Abraham, cast out this slave woman with her son, for the son of the slave woman shall not inherit along with my son Isaac. The matter was very distressing to Abraham on account of his son. But God said to Abraham, do not be distressed because of the boy and because of your slave woman. Whatever Sarah says to you, do as she tells you. For it is through Isaac that offspring shall be named for you. As for the son of the slave woman, I will make a nation of him also, because he is your offspring. So Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread in a skin of water and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder along with the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered about in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she cast the child into one of the bushes. Then she went and sat down opposite him a good way off, about the distance of a bow shot, and she said, do not let me look on the death of the child. And as she sat opposite him, she lifted up her voice and wept. And God heard the voice of the boy. And the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, what troubles you, Hagar? Do not be afraid, for God has heard the voice of the boy where he is. Come, lift up the boy and hold him fast with your hand, for I will make a great nation of him. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. She went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. God was with the boy, and he grew up, and he lived in the wilderness and became an expert with the bow. He lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother got a wife for him from the land of Egypt. At that time, Abimelech, with Phicol, the commander of his army, said to Abraham, God is with you in all that you do. Now, therefore, swear to me here by God that you will not deal falsely with me, or with my offspring, or with my posterity. But as I have dealt loyally with you, you will deal with me and with the land where you have resided as an alien. And Abraham said, I swear it. When Abraham complained to Abimelech about a well of water that Abimelech's servant had seized, Abimelech said, I do not know who has done this. You did not tell me, and I have not heard of it until today. So Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and the two men made a covenant. Abraham set apart 7 ewe-lambs of the flock, and Abimelech said to Abraham, what is the meaning of these 7 ewe-lambs that you have set apart? He said, these 7 ewe-lambs you shall accept from my hand, in order that you may be a witness for me that I dug this well. Therefore that place was called Beersheba, because both of them swore an oath. When they had made a covenant at Beersheba, Abimelech with Phicol, the commander of his army, left and returned to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted a tamask tree in Beersheba, and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham resided as an alien many days in the land of the Philistines. So, this is chapter 21 of the book of Genesis. And again, this is all, the Genesis is about our relationship with God, about the early Jews' relationship with God, who made them a chosen nation through Abraham. And Abraham was faithful to God, and that's why God made two nations out of him. So the first one from his first son Ishmael, who we believe today are the forebears of the Muslims, of the Muslim people. So they came through the lineage of Abraham through his son Ishmael. And then, of course, his other son Isaac, who the Jewish nation came from. So supposedly Abraham is the father of two nations, the Muslims and the Israelites. So that's where the history of these two groups come from in the world. But the other story here is Hagar and her son Ishmael, who were sent away into the wilderness because Sarah did not want the slave girl's son that she had with Abraham to be part of their group, to be part of their nation, because Sarah was promised her own son. Sarah was promised her own nation through Abraham. And it must have been really tough for Abraham to send his own son away. No, it was funny because earlier in Genesis, Sarah wanted Abraham to have a son with Hagar, the slave girl, because Sarah herself could not bear a child. And again, we can't think of this in the same terms we think of things today, because it was a very different society and things were different. People needed children to survive. They needed children to help them in their old age. They needed children to, to survive the history of their nation, so that their culture, their people would survive. It was a very different time back then than today. So, we say, well, how could Abraham have had this adulterous relationship with Hagar, and Sarah approved of it because she wanted a son? Again, it was a very different time back then. So we can't judge from our point of view how it was back then. Even though, again, what Sarah asked Abraham to do was not exactly acceptable to God, because adultery is still adultery. But Sarah and Abraham had a different mindset of why they were doing this, to prolong the nationhood of the Israelites. But of course, Ishmael was to become the father of the Muslim nation. And, God blessed Ishmael just like he blessed Isaac, the other son of Abraham, because they were both sons of Abraham, and Abraham was true to God. Abraham was, obedient to God in every way. So this is the story of the two sons of Abraham and what became of them. Okay? So that is chapter 21 of Genesis.